All right. Good morning. Good day. We are here and we are ready for a live webinar. And we're going to be talking about mobile marketing and social media. And we've got Lisa in the room. Lisa, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. And we're going to have some other people in the room coming along. We're having fun on Zoom. We're doing this live because we can, because we have lots to share and lots to learn. And it's going to be an adventure. I'm going to be ready to step into this world of copywriting and social media and mobile marketing and where it takes us today. This is the adventure. I feel like just jumping up for joy. So really, really delighted. I'm going to go into a quick share my screen here and just share a few things about a program that we have of mobile marketing at National University, to kind of introduce you to some of the things that we're doing there that are very exciting. We created the very first program in mobile marketing and social media, and it's offered online, and it's through the National University. And we've been around for about 45 years as a university, a private nonprofit based in San Diego, California, where we are right now. I'd love to share just a few things. This is an example of what one of our classes look like. We use this same platform here, Zoom, in our classes. And so no matter where you are, you can get involved. Can you really major in social media? Well, you bet. Why? Because U.S. News and World Report says you can. And also these skills are really important for MBAs. We are in the top 50 MBA programs in the country. And we have a textbook right now that we use called Mobile Marketing Essentials. I'm one of the co-authors. It came out in August of 2016, and we're doing our fourth update currently. So this is an ebook that constantly gets updated. So our courses are real world, taught by real business people, and the specialization includes just 2 courses in mobile, 2 courses in social, and the 5th is a creation of your mobile and social plan. So it's real easy to get started. You can learn all about social media, which we're going to be talking about today. If there's one of these you want to drive in on, we can go into that one right away. But we can learn a little bit about mobile as well. This was just an example, Lisa, and I'm just sharing you some of the visual graphics that our students have in the class. So they do things like games. And they get to pick what career they want, and then they match the career with the jobs, and it's really kind of a fun project. Yeah, so that's just an example of some of the things we're doing. We have lots of case studies that we have going on in our program, and real world, what happens today goes on in the classroom today. So I want to introduce you to our audience and also say how delighted we are, how delighted I am that you would join us. We have known each other just a short time, but we've seen each other at Social Media Marketing World.
That's right.
It's really our connection. I've attended all of them. I know you've attended almost or all of them as well. And I just think it's great for you to be able to share some of the tips and skills that you have with copywriting and relate that to social media. So you've got a great background with Madison Avenue. You've also taught in Paris, France, and you've worked with brands that are IBM, Hanes, Dr. Pepper. You came up with the campaign, Wait Till We Get Our Hanes on You.
You didn't sing it though.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll let you sing it. And let's get you started and share a little bit about yourself and why you're passionate about copywriting. So social media as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I started in as a copywriter right out of college, and that was a long time ago, in the 1980s, and I got recruited on campus at Brown by a big advertising agency named Young and Rubicam, and it was my dream job because when I was a little kid, I would watch those commercials and leave during the programs. I always loved TV commercials because of the short, compact little stories that they could tell and how they could take just some object and turn it into this iconic, magical thing. So that's kind of, I see Holly. Holly is there. Is she trying to call in? I've kind of lost my camera here for a second, but that's okay. So anyhow, I was always just very, very intrigued by the way that advertising and these short stories, this is before social media, obviously, could create these larger than life ideas out of just everyday objects. And so when I got into college, my big exciting thing to be able to do after was, oh my God, I could actually get a job doing those kinds of things and creating those kinds of messages about products and making just any product into something larger than life. And that was really what really got me into it. So in college, I studied something that your students may or may not know what it is, because very few people know what it is when I tell them that I majored in semiotics. And semiotics is the study of the theory of signs and symbols. So that's kind of a fancy way of saying that it helps you understand the relationship between things and what they represent. So symbolism and things like logos and things like that carry with them all of this extra meaning. So that helped me, that kind of stood me in good stead when I went into the advertising business, because I was able to draw from all of these different kinds of disciplines. I'm very interested in music, very interested in art, and all kinds of other creative expressions. And I used to draw them all into my commercials and stuff. And that was a long time ago. So for the past 10 or so years, I've been working freelance, mostly for entrepreneurs, but still also for corporate, on their marketing, and not just the big brand TV, radio, print kind of stuff that I used to do in the advertising business, but also social media, digital marketing, and these more direct ways of communicating with people now. So where that very few people have both ends of the spectrum, I've discovered. So what I like to do is kind of be sort of a translator, or sort of a bridge between them, because to me, I think that social media and mobile media is today's way of giving you those quick little sound bites, those quick stories, compressing an entire universe into a short sort of snackable or sound bite. That it's just a really exciting thing. And the greatest thing is you don't have to be Coca-Cola or IBM or Haynes to communicate with mass number of people now.
So, the world is flat.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to where it used to be.
Exactly. And I think that's, everybody can reach people in the same exact way. And anybody can be a brand, anybody can start a brand. And it's just, it makes it noisy. So that's why it's important to have some of these old school tactics to be able to help you stand out from the noise. Because I think a lot of people feel that a lot of people make the media the message. Oh, the latest platform, let's do that. Or Facebook Live, let's do that. And they're all exciting, but the media is not the message. The message is the message. And so, the medium is the message for 5 minutes when it's new and everybody's excited about it, but eventually content is king. And so you're still going to have to learn how to get and keep people's attention and start a relationship, whatever medium you use.
So this gets back to strategy.
Yes.
This gets back to the military use of the word strategy, with flanking and with tactical performance. These are the key underpinnings. This is what we're teaching in our classes. We're not teaching just the latest and greatest. Mm-hmm. So give us some basics here on strategy, and kind of lead us through, how does copywriting, and why is that so important for social media?
Well, First of all, I just want to make a distinction between the kind of copywriting that we used to do on Madison Avenue and the copywriting that you'll see in social media and digital marketing and things like that. They do share some things in common, but they are very, very different. So and I want to make that distinction because a lot of people who come into business now they all watched Mad Men and stuff like that, which happened, even before I came into the picture, but not that long before. And that's all about being clever and coming up with the most iconic idea and having something be really impactful in a very kind of conceptual way. And there's still a place for that, even in digital marketing and social media. However, most of the work that I do with people now who are in small businesses and who are doing direct marketing, we need to stay away from that stuff or use it very sparingly, because the authenticity and being real it has a higher currency now than it used to. And I had to unlearn a lot of very slick, snazzy, award-winning, Mad Men style things in order to be able to work in this market. Okay, so they're very, very different, because if you get to be too clever especially before you've discovered how to be clear, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. It won't connect with anybody, and it'll just feel slick and flat and inauthentic. It's important to separate them. But where they combine, and to me, the first part of any strategy that's so important, and I know you've spoken about this before, is to have a very deep understanding of who your ideal client is, who your audience is, and who you're talking to, and why your message should matter to them. Behind me, this is something I did recently with a client. I do a lot of drawing on the board to help people kind of flesh out who their ideal client is and what they're thinking, the kinds of things they're saying to themselves, the kinds of what are their desires, their fears, their longings, what are they avoiding, what do they wish for, where were they before, where are they going, and where are you in that, where's you and your brand and your offer in that, in that kind of constellation. When you have that figured out before you start to do anything, whether it's writing a blog post or putting something up on Instagram or anything like that, when you have a very clear view of who that person is and who you are in relation to them, or who you would like to be in relation to them, that can inform anything that you're saying. And then you can choose the medium that makes the most sense for where your audience is, for what you feel the most drawn to.
So what we use the word persona when we talk about who is your customer. So the psychology of it all is built upon this. This is the strategy. Find out who is the person that you want to speak to and speak in their language.
Exactly. The persona is what I'm talking about. The thing is, though, that it's something that a lot of people talk about, and I find that a lot of my clients, whether they're corporate or entrepreneurs, have difficulty not only identifying them, but being willing to narrow it down, because they think they won't have enough business, or because they think their product is for everyone, or because they don't, or because especially women feel this way. They don't want to leave anybody out. They don't want to be exclusive. And that, as you know, that's the opposite is true, that the more specific you get, the better your marketing is. Just like in a movie, and I'm also a screenwriter, when you watch a movie that's about, a guy who gets stranded on Mars. I mean, it's a very specific story. You have nothing in common with this person, but yet you do. There's that common humanity and stuff. And by telling a very specific story about a specific person, that's where the universal comes in. If you try to be universal to start with, you talk to no one. And that's where a lot of copy, whether it's in social media or in emails or in advertising, falls very flat.
Well, this is one of my questions to you, Lisa, because if you're going to be a short form social media expert, and you are, and you also bridge yourself over to the long form, in what ways are they different? And what ways are they the same?
Well, the obvious way they're different. In long form, you have more room to write. In long form, you have more, so you could, if you're going to tell a story, for example, and I know I'm bringing up story a lot, but that's such a big thing, not only these days, but for thousands of years. If you're going to tell a real story about somebody, and you have a long blog post to do it, or an email to do it, or a video to do it in, then you'll do it in a different way. Whereas in a short, like an Instagram post or a Twitter post or a Facebook post, on Facebook you have a little bit more space if you want it. So let's imagine Twitter or Instagram. You have a snapshot, a moment in time that basically takes an image out of that picture. So like imagine, I'll go old school again. When you look at pictures from Time magazine or National Geographic, or the ones that win awards, you look at that picture and you know that is a nanosecond in time, but there's a whole before and after that happened where that picture is situated. And that's the magic of things like Instagram and things like that, where you can post something that lets the reader, the viewer, become a kind of a co-creator of that story with you. It's a window into a short. So you've got this long thing that could be the entire story, and then you're going to take out this little piece right here, this little piece of the timeline, and highlight that for a second. So one is sort of a subset of the other. They're not different. They're in different formats, but they're not necessarily different. They're part of the same sort of overall matter. And obviously, when the shorter you are, the more economical you need to be with your words. So that's where visuals help to tell the story better than just the words.
So in your opinion, do you prefer writing the long form or the short form? Which is your preference? Well,
I mean, they really are different in terms of how much fun they are, what kind of fun they are. I mean, the longer stuff, you get to be more of a wordsmith in that, and paint pictures with words and things like that, in addition to doing the pictures. But in the short form, you need to be smarter and more, I mean, for lack of a better example, I mean, when you look at our current president's tweets, it's like a haiku. I mean, he'll say things that are just like, I mean, whether you love him or you hate him, it's incredible the amount of, now of course a lot of has to do with who he is and with the position he holds, but just in a few words, there's just a whole argument happening there, and that if he said the exact same thing in paragraphs and paragraphs would not hold the same impact. You know, it's so I think that there's a lot to be said for less is more, in terms of, so I like shorter stuff for messages that are sort of like what I would call Twitter and Instagram is, to me, the modern equivalent of a billboard. You're driving by, it's fast, it's a quick message, and demands a quick reaction or response. Where Facebook or a blog post is something, or any kind of video that you're going to record, is something where it's more like what would have been a print ad or an old-fashioned TV commercial that took a longer time to be able to tell you something. So that's how they equate to me. I like them both.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So I'm going to step back a little bit to your earlier career and talk about your working at Y&R and Ogilvy and Lowe and other companies. And tell me kind of the process of maybe how did you get that Hanes campaign? How did you develop that slogan? And can you sing it for me?
I can sing it for you. It goes, "Wait till we get our hands on you." And so I wrote a whole song around that. That was a very interesting situation, but that was back when jingles were much more in vogue than they are now. And I actually think that that's a big mistake, that somehow they fell out of fashion and seem kind of old fashioned to people now, because to me, I've always loved music, but to me a jingle is we pay for airtime in the advertising business, and with a jingle, it sings over and over in a person's mind. They hear it once and then they can sing it to themselves even years and years later. I mean, that campaign ran for like 10 or 12 years, and there's still a little bit of it left over from back when it started. The reason that we came up with that campaign was, I don't know how many people will remember this, probably your students are too young to remember, but when we got the account at what was then, the company was named Lintas, it is now called Lowe. It came already sort of bundled in with all of these celebrities that the company, that our client had already contracted with, based on something that used to be called, may still be called Q scores. At the time, there were certain celebrities, they would figure out like who the hottest, or who scored the best with people that you care about. Today, the modern equivalent would be, if you wanted to connect with an influencer to your audience, even a social media influencer who might not be famous to everyone, but who might be really well known and respected by your audience, then they would have a high score in terms of, how people liked them and felt connected to them. And the collection of people that they wanted us to put into one commercial were like such a completely random collection. There were some sports people, like Michael Jordan was in a lot of our commercials. And at the time, this is how long ago this was, Dan Marino and Boomer Esiason were big football players who were also, we also had to somehow include. At the same time, they wanted us to include Nancy Lopez, who was a big female golfer at the time, and Felicia Rashad, who played the wife of Bill Cosby on The Cosby Show. And I was like, what do any of these people have anything in common? So what we did was we created a campaign that had little cameos by these people, but also included a lot of just ordinary people. All of them wearing the t-shirts, wearing the underwear, wearing the socks. And it was kind of a celebration of, it's a little bit like what Nike does, although I can't compare it to Nike, where it's like, they're just like you. We're all people. We all enjoy, feeling good in our clothes and feeling good in our skin. And so the idea of wait till we get our hands on you was, hey, you thought it was just white underwear. Because at the time, Hanes and Fruit of the Loom and, whatever generic tighty-whities you'd pick up at Kmart were all pretty much considered the same. There was no value add to Hanes. And when we did the campaign, we wanted to show, hey, it's not just white underwear, it's t-shirts and all these colorful things, and all different kinds of underwear and different kinds of socks. And look at all these different kinds of people who are expressing their own style. Because at the time, the Hanes t-shirt was very big in the modeling business, and you would wear like a $400 jacket on top of an $8 Hanes t-shirt. So we had Carol Alt was another person who was a big supermodel at the time. So we had her in the commercials too. And so the idea was, hey, look at all these ways that you can style these clothes. There's very, very basic but good quality, high quality clothes that you can wear with your high class jacket. So we showed all of these celebrities and ordinary people feeling good in their clothes at the same time with this big celebration music and everything. And in the time when it ran, in the early '90s, it was a big deal. The brand, we can't exactly draw a specific correlation, but they credited the campaign with a 20% gain, like a 20% market share gain every year for years after that, like every year over year. And even now, I would say that the Hanes brand compared to Fruit of the Loom and the other things that it used to be parity with is considered to be a higher end, or has more value. And so that's really where that came from. But I worked on a lot of other things like dishwasher detergent, and every day was different. There was computers and dishwasher detergent and tampons and contact lenses and all kinds of different things. The most important thing that I think people really need to think about in their marketing, whether they're doing it in social media or in besides knowing your ideal client, which is number one to me, number one, is to be thinking problem solution as much as you can. I mean, luxury brands are a little different because they don't really solve a problem exactly, except that the problem might be you just want to look better and richer than your friends. But for most products, a lot of people are searching on social media and on Google and things for how to solve a problem, how to fix this, how to get my ex back, how to lose 10 pounds, how to live better, how to stop procrastinating. So whatever your product is, if you can figure out a way that it solves an important problem for your audience, then that's what you want to be talking about a lot of the time for a bunch of reasons. One, because people will pay more for painkillers than for vitamins. But also, when you can articulate your customers' problems to them, back to them, as if you really understand, that's where it goes back to knowing your persona again. They feel so seen and so understood, and then that's like you're 99% of the way there in terms of making them into your customer, because there's something that happens in people's brains that when you can articulate their problems back to them in a way that even they didn't know, they automatically assume that you have the answer. Don't ask me why this happens, but it's just the way it is.
I believe that's called positioning. And I remember the Trout and Reese book from back when 7-Up was the Uncola, and so many other brands were positioned. It's what happens in the mind. It's not what happens with the product.
Absolutely. So the Uncola is a perfect example. I mean, Dr. Pepper went ahead and did this even more, but what problem was that solving? Nothing really, except that everybody was drinking Coke, or everybody was drinking the same thing. And it was sort of like Avis was the other one. We try harder. But the Uncola and Dr. Pepper was for like, hey, you want to be unconventional. You're not like everybody else. You want to express your individuality and stand out. That's why you drink this instead of what everybody else is drinking. So in that respect, what's in the can is irrelevant if you can position what's in that can as making you someone who makes their own decisions, stands out, doesn't follow the crowd, bucks tradition, is a maverick, and all that kind of thing. So that's the reason I went into the business, is because you could take a can of soda and make it mean all of those things when I hold a can of soda.
I'm also very passionate about this, and so I'm really, really delighted to talk with you. So we've covered some things from the 80s and 90s. What about today? Is there some brand that comes to mind today who's maybe really rocking it and you just go wow when you see that?
I have a few crushes. My biggest crush right now, and it's still kind of old school, but this is an example of a brand that has managed to bring their old school stuff into now, and even made it better. And that is Snickers, Snickers candy bars. Now, Snickers has always been all about trying to make themselves into something that's different than candy because it has peanuts in it. They use the peanuts as justification for, it helps curb your appetite. It satisfies you. Therefore, they position themselves now against, energy bars and things like that, rather than against other candy, which is really smart since their company makes all kinds of other candy. So they're basically saying, okay, we're not like Three Musketeers and Milky Way, which our company also makes. We're the kind of the energy bar version of that. So number one, you feel good about eating it because because you need it because you're hungry. It's for being hungry rather than eating an apple or nuts or a piece of cheese, which is what you really probably should be eating when you're hungry. You're being given permission to eat candy for being hungry. Number one. Number two, the campaign about "You're not you when you're hungry," that one where people turn into or the actors are other people being played by other people. First of all, it's hysterically funny. Second of all, it basically says your person, and this is, and it draws on a universal truth. When you're peckish, some people get grouchy, some people get forgetful. It affects your personality, and everybody knows that's true, or everybody knows someone where that's true. So it's not just silly. It actually touches on a real human emotion. And then, if you eat this, now you're not only curbing your hunger, but you're doing everyone around you a favor because nobody wants to be with you when you're a grouch. So you're actually helping the world by eating this product. I mean, it's crazy. And the great thing is that they've managed to translate this and decline this into all of these different media. So you have these hysterical TV commercials. They've had some really good print ads, like at Halloween a couple of years ago. I saw one where Count Dracula was lying in what looked like a coffin, but it was really a tanning bed. And it's like, that's not really where he should be. He's out of place, but because he's hungry, he's not. I mean, I don't know how good that one was, but it was, they try. But the thing that really made me so happy was when I was in New York last May. I went into CVS to buy some, I don't know, shampoo or something. And at the candy counter on the way to the cash register, I saw these Snickers bars. And the wrappers, all of the wrappers were different. Instead of saying Snickers in the same typeface, it said hot mess, or it said grouch, or it said oddball, or it said, and they were all the wrappers were different. And it still looked like Snickers because it was the same colors and the same typography, but because the word on the front was, so basically this is the candy you eat when you're feeling like a hot mess. And I was like, oh God, this is just so smart. And I had to applaud them for having the courage to change their packaging to go along with their ad campaign. So, I mean, for all those reasons, the positioning of the candy bar as a health food, almost, the creativity of the commercials and everything like that, and their willingness to take that idea and run with it through all their different touch points, and I'm sure there are some that I've missed, has to me made this a really standout thing. And it's so unusual for such an old brand to be able to do something so fresh and new and fun while still keeping a like kind of a thread that goes back to their brand heritage.
Wow, that was a great answer. I love how you explained that in so much detail, and you really gave that Snickers story a life of its own. I had thought about that. You've really thought this through. And so you mentioned at the counter. So this brings up a question that I have about counter. With social media, we snack at the cash register. So food sales at the register, at the point of purchase, have dramatically dropped. Mm-hmm. So what Snickers has done is figure out a way to grab that attention back.
That's actually, I never thought of that, but it's true. I wasn't really looking for candy. I'm on Weight Watchers and I'm not supposed to be eating candy, but it caught my eye that the packaging was different. Out of the corner of my eye, I said, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" And then when I picked one up, I thought, "Oh, that's funny." And then I looked at all the other ones, and I said, "Oh my gosh, they're all different. This is crazy. How smart is that?" But yeah, it did, and it interrupted my pattern for sure.
And so the gum sales and breath mints and all these things that you normally would buy right at the register, the sales have dropped because.
Oh, absolutely, I can totally see that. Magazines must really be suffering because that's what you used to do while you were waiting, was read those magazines. And now they just sit there gathering dust.
So let's find a persona. Is there a Snickers persona, or is there another brand that you can kind of tell me who would be the persona for that? Or are you working on anything now?
Well, the persona, I'm not sure who the persona would be for that, but I assume that I would imagine back sort of reverse engineering from what I'm seeing, that they're still talking mostly to young males, the Gatorade crowd, but who have a sense of humor, they've always kind of talked to people who are interested in sports and whether they're playing or watching, So people who are active, but maybe not like crazy, obviously not crazy health nuts. Otherwise they would be eating candy at all. So, so kind of the kind of person who watches football on Sundays and things like that. That's who I think that their main persona is. Not that I won't eat a Snickers, and it does affect me. Like I can kind of make kind of an excuse to myself as to why I'm eating this, because at least it has peanuts in it. So, what am I working on right now? Let's see. The biggest brand I'm working on right now is because I'm not doing that much with corporate at the moment, but the biggest brand I'm working on right now. I don't know if your students have read this book called The E-Myth or The E-Myth Revisited. They have a company that does coaching and all of the coaching clients. They have thousands of coaches all over the world, and all of the coaching clients of the E-Myth company are, I'll call them small business owners, but when I mean $10 million and above. So small is a relative term. They're not solopreneurs. The OtterBox is one of the companies that they've coached, and other kinds of companies that do things like printing T-shirts and wedding event planning and things like that. And so what we've been working on is rebranding their entire business to be to really make the client the hero of the story, to make the entrepreneur this triumphant figure. Not the one who always wins, but the one who really has to be the one, doing battle with the demons of business and with their own demons of, because the whole premise of the book and the entire coaching program is you may be great at something, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily great at running a business that provides that service. So the person who is a lawyer who decides to open their own firm, or a person who's a great cook who decides to open a restaurant. You've all seen how those kinds of things can fall apart, where your talent for doing something doesn't necessarily equate to talent for business. But so they coach people in finance and hiring and marketing and lead generation and sales, which all sound very kind of, oh my God, all the stuff I have to do, kind of onerous. So what we're doing with the branding is telling stories about these different people, about where they came from, about why they started their business, about what they want their business to do for them in their life, and talk about their entire life and their family and things like that, and the struggles that they've gone through and the way they've overcome those struggles, and so that their clients will be able to see themselves in these people, because everyone's always showing winners, but what happened on the way to the triumph. And so it's turning out to be a really emotional, very beautiful, celebratory thing. So that if you're an entrepreneur who's struggling with their business, instead of feeling like a failure or maybe I'm not cut out for this, it's like, listen, this is just the way this is. This is a tough road, but if you want to succeed, you can, and we're here to help you. And you're a hero on this journey. So instead of making the brand the hero, we're making the client, their client, the hero of their own story.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
I know we've got some entrepreneurs here just paying right now in our live webinar. If anybody wants to ask a question to Lisa, go ahead. I know we're all struggling with something. Maybe there's a challenge that you're facing, and that's why you're here live with us. So feel free to join in and ask a question if you'd like. Otherwise, just Lisa, I'd love for you to maybe, if you want to share, or I could share the screen, and we can go take a look at the E-Myth or another brand that you might be working on.
Well, here's the thing: they haven't actually launched their new branding yet. What they've got going on, we just debuted the sort of the mock-ups of everything and the new videos and stuff like that to their internal at their sort of corporate like offsite about a couple of weeks ago, and it hasn't actually gone live yet. So I'm not in a position to share any of the things that right now that I'm working on at the moment, because it's either confidential or not soup yet. But let me think for a second a little bit more. But you're right; it'd be good to see some examples of how things are working. I can tell you a little bit about a client that I'm working with right now who is a solo entrepreneur at the moment. She is her name is Lori Campbell. She is a gerontologist, which is, but she basically works with people on premature aging. But what she wants to do is not so much work with older people, but work with younger people who feel invincible and think everything is great because they're eating kale and they're going to the gym a couple of times a week, but are actually aging at a much faster rate than than they know about, and they might be predisposed to diseases and things that they don't know about. So what she wants to do is work with them and get them tested, like those telomere tests and stuff like that, baseline tests to see how biologically old they are, what predispositions they might have. So when I met her a couple of months ago, she said she wanted to rebrand herself and she wanted to be able to appeal to younger people. She has a very, very active Instagram account that's amazing. You can go to her Instagram if you want. Where she is, she's 55 and she looks like incredible because she's done all this incredible work with herself. She lifts weights and whatever. And she has a lot of followers who are very inspired by her. But what we're putting together right now for her is something that's kind of making her a little bit more larger than life, just like what we've been talking about. And she wants to. We've talked about a lot about how, rather than prevention, which is what she does like to talk about a lot, and premature aging and all these things that makes you think, oh, this is for old people. We wanted to talk about taking care of yourself, something positive, loving yourself, being you 2.0. And where we came out with was the idea that your cells are where all of this magic can happen. And when you take care of your cells, when you love your cells, then everything else takes care of itself. And so that's where we came up with what I coined for her, the cell love revolution. Instead of the self-love revolution, it's the cell love revolution. And so that's not live yet either, but we're working on it right now. And so she's creating a whole program that she's going to launch next year. That's going to be some sort of an initiative where she's going to be inviting millennials and Gen Xers to take charge of their health at the cellular level, to have more energy, to have more, to age it more, more powerfully, and to look better, feel better, and, have real health, the kind that you can't necessarily see on the outside as much, but it does show on the outside, but instead of just the superficial stuff that only shows on the outside. So all of the stuff we're doing with her is about loving your cells and taking care of yourself at the cellular level, and how, your cells replenish themselves every 7 years, and what are you doing to reinvent your cells, things like that. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing, and it's totally different than what she was doing before. Gerontologist, aging prematurely, it made it sound much more like, fountain of youth kind of stuff, where this is much more proactive and exciting, and you're doing something good for yourself right now. And yes, it would work for somebody older as well, but she wants to catch people while they're still healthy, and people who want to really, be at the cutting edge of their own and hacking their own bodies. Mary Beth, I don't hear you. You're muted.
So let's take this example, and if you can relate that to articulating the problem back to the customer, because we have a question from Holly here about that. So, and I first wrote cell love, SELL. I realize now it's cell, CELL, love.
Yes, CELL.
So what is the problem? What is what's the consumer facing right now?
Well, here, this is a good example because it would be very easy, and she does talk to a different audience where their problem is much more apparent to them. If I'm 45 or even 35 and I'm beginning to notice that my body is changing and I don't like the way it's changing, and I want to recapture my youth or at least preserve what I've got, then my problem is going to be much more apparent to me. She really wants to, and I will say I resisted this at the beginning because I told her it's going to be very difficult to sell to younger people to make this happen. But when we did some more research into the values of millennials and Gen Xers, who are all really about, they eat organic, and they are very interested in some of them are very interested in fitness as a sport and as a place for self-improvement and for being basically their best selves, then that's what we're trying to tap into there. And so what we need to do, sometimes a problem is not something that is recognizable at the beginning. So you need to do a bit of education. So we need to do things like, hey, did you know that a recent study of people from 26 to 38 showed that some of them were testing biologically as old as 60 years old? Did you know that? And it wasn't showing on the outside. what about you? You may think you're taking care of yourself, and you may think you're doing, you're being conscious about this, but you may be doing things, thinking things, or having genetic predispositions to things that you don't know anything about, that it's a ticking time bomb. So basically she's going to have to do a little bit of education in order to make this problem be something that is present and relatable to these people, because most of them are probably thinking, hey, I got this because I'm young and beautiful right now. So that is an issue, So when the problem is not apparent, then you do need to shine a light on it and point to it. I'll give a quick example from my Madison Avenue years. I tell this story a lot. When I first started in the business, a few years after I started, dishwasher detergent only came in powder form. There was a box of powder. Most people use something called Cascade. It's still around, and it was a powder in a box, and that was it. And the company that I worked for, the agency that I worked for, had Colgate-Palmolive as a client. And Colgate-Palmolive, which was way behind Procter & Gamble that made Cascade, created something. I don't know where they get this idea, but they created something. They created a liquid version of a dishwasher detergent that would go into your dishwasher, the first one. And there was only one problem. Nobody wanted this product. Nobody was interested in this product. Nobody needed this product. And we were supposed to come up with a TV campaign for it. And my partner and I were looking at each other saying, what do we say? It's a liquid, so what? So a lot of times you're going to have a product where it's like, I've got this great product, it's a new product, it's an innovation, but people are going to be saying, so what? And the so what is, I don't need it. It doesn't solve a problem for me. So when we were trying to come up with something, we were feeling really worried that we were going to, totally have egg on our faces, and it wasn't our fault. There was no reason for this product. So we went and we watched some focus groups. And if your students don't know what a focus group is, it's a bunch of people that get together to ask them questions, people who are likely consumers of this product. And so we sat behind the one-way mirror and watched these women. They were mostly women, all women actually at the time, talking about Cascade and everything. And they kept showing them this bottle of stuff from Palmolive, and they were like, we don't need this. First of all, we love Cascade. Second of all, who needs this? It works fine. And so the moderator was really frustrated. And finally, she said, okay, like, if you had to tell me one thing that you don't love about the way you're doing your dishes right now, what would it be? And they sat and they thought. And one of the women said, well, it's probably because I have an older dishwasher. See, she still loved the product. This is what brand loyalty will do. She still would not blame the product for this. It's probably because I have an older dishwasher. But every once in a while, I'll open the dishwasher and the powder will have gotten stuck in that little cup in the door, and it won't have dissolved, and there'll be little pieces of powder all over my dishes, and the dishes aren't clean. And all the other women around the table start saying, yeah, that happened to me too. Oh, I hate when that happens. And they began to, suddenly there was a first sound of the product wasn't perfect in the room. And so the moderator kept asking questions, and eventually she said, well, how does that make you feel? And the woman was like, well, I'm so frustrated because it's the last thing I was going to do in the day, and my day was done and my work was done, and now I have to do the dishes over again, and it's horrible. And all the women were going, yeah, it's terrible. I hate that. 5 minutes before, they thought it was no problem, right? So the moderator said, and then what happens? How do you feel then? And she said, the woman said, it makes me feel like taking all my dishes and just throwing them out the window. And all the other women said, yeah, me too. And it was like pitchforks and torches, where 5 minutes earlier, they couldn't think of one nasty thing to say about this product. And I looked at my partner, I said, there's our commercial. Let's just go and do that. So we went upstairs and we wrote a very, you can find it on YouTube, a very, not very classy commercial where women were opening up the dishwasher, taking out the dishes, finding out that the powder did not dissolve, and throwing their dishes against the wall and out the window. And instead of a product that we thought was going to just bomb in the marketplace, it ended up, they couldn't make it fast enough. They couldn't keep it on the shelves because everybody had experienced this problem. And we said in the commercial, hey, because it's a liquid, it dissolves faster, so it doesn't leave any powder residue, and you don't have this problem anymore. And people were like, oh my God, I hate that problem. And they all went out and bought the stuff. And it was incredible. We won awards for it, not creative awards. We won effectiveness awards for this campaign because no one had ever seen, and now it's a whole category. Now Cascade makes a liquid. But it was dead in the water, no pun intended, until that woman said that thing, and all the women around the table agreed with her. And it was like, that's it. So we had to find the problem. They didn't think there was a problem, but the problem was there, but they just weren't paying attention to it. And when that person raised that problem, then suddenly, oh, so where does your product fill a gap where something else that may be fantastic and the leader in the marketplace sometimes fails, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, and well, we don't do that. We don't have that problem. Oh, suddenly you're the hero. So that's what happened with that product. And that's what I always tell my clients. It's like, if you can find a problem, I know most people don't want to talk about the negative things, but I always say, if you can just find the gap that you fill, that where something else lets people down, or that solves some kind of pain, even if it's not that important, doesn't seem that important. When you pay attention to something, it gets important. So that's why with my client Lori, she's going to have to get these younger people who think they're doing everything perfect for their health, and they're like, life hackers and health hackers, and the best, the fittest person at the gym. Hey, guess what? You may not be as fit as you think you are because of things that are going on in your genes that you don't know about, and behaviors that you're doing that really aren't helping you, and you think you're okay. Let me help you hack your body, like I did, meaning her, because she is, if you look at her, gerontologist Lori Campbell on Instagram, she's, well, if you see her, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's like incredibly ripped, and she's 55 years old, and she tests biologically younger every time she tests. She's getting younger biologically.
So let me ask you this. So this is a great story, and you've answered the question from Holly. Thank you. And if anybody else has a question, please ask. So you found that you can get the answer using a focus group, but in today's world, focus groups are lengthy processes. It does take a lot, and most people aren't using them. So is there a way to use social media to kind of figure out your problem faster?
Oh my God. I don't even know how
these people go for that.
Yeah, I don't even know how these people who run focus groups stay in business now, because social media lets you poll everybody. You can poll your people on social media. You can send out surveys using something called SurveyMonkey, or there are other kinds of survey software. You can create polls on Facebook. They even have a polling feature where you can say, hey, what do you think? And I see this all the time in my groups. Hey, I want to have, I'm looking for which title do you like best for my new book? And then people get to pick it. Now, obviously, or you can just get together with people like this on a Zoom. You can have a virtual focus group. You could have an actual focus group using something like Zoom, where you invite, 5 or 6 at a time, or 10 at a time of your target market. You can do it once, or you can do it several times, and say, hey, would you be willing to get on a conference call with me where I'm going to ask you some questions about something I'm planning on doing? Obviously, you need people who are willing to do it. Those focus group ladies were all paid like $50 to show up and do it. But you should be able to know enough people in your target market to be able to invite some folks to come and talk to you. Now, remember though, a focus group in there's 2 different kinds of research. There's qualitative and there's quantitative. A focus group is usually what's called qualitative. Quantitative research is what it sounds like. You ask 1,000 people or 50,000 people a few questions, and you can see on a chart what in general, like what was the general attitude. You don't get a lot of what they call verbatims out of that, what the people actually say, but you can see a general trend. And then you can combine that with qualitative research, which is more like focus groups, where it's more anecdotal, where you're sitting around a table or a virtual table like this one with people and asking them questions and getting real human beings saying something back. And when you look at that in connection with quantitative research, it gives you a full picture. The reason why we were able to go ahead and do that dishwashing detergent commercial after just watching that focus group with just like 10 ladies in the room was, number one, we were desperate and we needed to come up with something. Number two, there was such a strong consensus. There was such a universal consensus in just that little group, and such a strong emotion attached to all of them, that we felt that it was still a responsible thing, that we could take that idea and that it would be universal outside of that room, because of the unanimity of the opinion and of the emotion there. But normally, if you just ask 10 of your friends what they think of something, it gives you some information. It's probably not conclusive. So it all depends on how much you're going to be investing and what you're going to be doing next, and whether you're just looking for confirmation of something you're already thinking, or whether you really want to learn something new.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, good points. So let's stay on that topic of social media and talk about what channels you like to use yourself. You mentioned Instagram. You've talked a little bit about blogs, etc. Where do you think the messaging and the most impact is today, and where do you see some trends in social media?
Well, we all have our personal preferences. I mean, Instagram is great. I've not personally gotten that involved in it. I'm going to be doing more of it because I'm using more visual stuff in my work. I think Instagram is important. Well, there's a few different criteria for how you should be choosing your social media channels. Number one, you really can't be great at everything. So I think it's important to curate what you're going to be using for any specific project to maybe 3 top ones at the most, and then maybe only occasionally doing other stuff. Otherwise, you're going to be spreading yourself too thin. Having said that, different things are great for different things. And also, you also have to take into account your own personal preference, like where do you spend the most time and where do you like to play and where's most of your audience? And when people ask me, oh, well, where's your audience? It's like, well, my audience is on all of these different platforms, but some of them are weighted more than others. So I think Facebook has to be considered for absolutely every single brand. I think if you're not on Facebook at all, that if you only do Instagram or you only do these other things, I think you're really missing out because Facebook has become so ubiquitous and all the stuff they keep bringing out, including Facebook Live that I want to talk about in a moment. I think that it's kind of if you're of your 3, I think it needs to be one of the 3. I just my opinion. But if your brand relies a lot on visuals, either because you're creating visuals or lifestyle and things like that. Instagram is great for that because it tells stories and pictures. Snapchat used to be big on that. I'm finding that Snapchat is losing a lot of favor with people because it's very complicated to use, where Instagram has had a lot of staying power. Pinterest is very big among people who like to do things with visuals, and people who do stuff with crafts, who are selling physical products, who are, and things like that. Pinterest has become an incredibly powerful platform. Even it was big for a while, then it kind of went to sleep after Instagram got big, and now it's rising again. And I see a lot more people going back to Pinterest as a way of standing out. YouTube is a very important platform too. And it's great for repurposing. So if you're doing videos on Facebook Live, it's just download them and put them up on YouTube. Why not? Because YouTube is owned by Google, and Google is the biggest search engine in the world. So it's really a little bit crazy not to be on YouTube if you're doing video. So that's LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, but that's because I get a lot of corporate work through LinkedIn. It really is kind of like your resume on the internet. I think it's becoming more like other social media platforms, but it's not necessarily, I find it very powerful for what I do. If you're a freelancer or you're looking for business contacts, and LinkedIn is super important. But I don't know how important it is for brands. It's good to be there, but I don't think if I only had to pick 3 that I would necessarily use LinkedIn for brands. So Twitter is still it was bigger a while ago. I think it's still important for sharing news and for sharing timely information. Hey, we're running a flash sale. Hey, here's a coupon. Here's my Black Friday promotion. It's only good until like tomorrow. Things like that and sharing news. It's really, so the thing is you could use something like Buffer or Hootsuite or something like that to automate and to post to Twitter and other platforms at the same time. Instagram won't let you do that. Instagram, you have to be posting. Their terms of service require that you actually post from your phone or post like actually you use your finger and do something. You can pre-schedule it using software like, I think there's one called Grum. There's one called Later that used to be called Latergram, that will allow you to pre-schedule and basically curate your Instagram feed in advance. You can see where things will be together, because that's important to think about your feed as a whole and see what pictures end up together. But at the time when they're supposed to go post, it's going to come to your phone and you're going to have to press a button and say, yes, I want to post this. Going back to Facebook, I want to go back to Facebook now. Facebook was always important, okay? But now with Facebook live stream video, I know that was one of the things you're going to ask me about. Video's been big for a while, but now it's crazy not to be using it. And because Facebook Live, especially live streaming video, has become one of the only ways to get your brand noticed on Facebook for free, because Facebook has made it really more and more going to a pay-to-play model where you have to buy ads to get your stuff in front of anybody. Number one. Number two, live video gives people a window into your world, the way Instagram does, and Instagram has video now too, but it's not live video. Live video gives people a window into your world, a window into your brand's world, and that kind of behind the scenes stuff is what people really love right now, and helps them feel like they're really part of your family, and I think that really helps you stand out. And the other thing is with Facebook Live, only when you run it from the business page, not from your personal profile. You can run it from your personal profile, you can run it from your business page, you can run it inside of groups. When you run it from your business page or from your brand's business page, then you're able to retarget those people with ads. So how powerful is it to know that if somebody watched, you could retarget only people who watched like a minute or more of this video, and over time the audience builds and builds and builds and builds. You don't have their names, you don't have them on your mailing list, but Facebook knows who they are. Yeah. So imagine, you're putting up an ad for a product that you talked about on that video to people who watched 2 or 3 minutes of that video already. Now they're seeing the ad.
Yeah.
That's a very warm audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point about the Facebook Live. I did one last night at a client's and we got a lot of good visibility from that.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't even matter if people are actually there live at the time.
Right.
I have a friend, do you know Molly Mahoney? Do you know Molly? Well, I want to share something from hers that I think your audience will really appreciate. She teaches people about Facebook Live, and she always says, to get the most out of your Facebook Lives, she says it's something that she teaches called APR. Announce, pretend. The P is for pretend. I thought it was perform, but it's for pretend, and repurpose. Announce that you're going to be doing a Facebook Live. Then when you do it, pretend there's a lot of people there, even if there's nobody there. Act as if, right? And then you take that video and you repurpose it in other ways. You edit the post to. Yeah. I mean, all these things. I want to. Can I share a resource with your audience?
Go ahead. We have one question also about Facebook in the chat.
This is not even mine. This is Molly, and I am such a big fan of hers, and I'm in her class. That she's running a free master class now. This is today. At the time of this recording, it's November 13th. This next one is happening tomorrow, but whenever your students see this, she will probably be running a class, the next one, at the same address. But for right now, if you want to catch the one that's happening on the 14th of November, if you'll go here, this is backwards now. Probably backwards, right?
No, it's okay.
So forwards. So I put, that's what Molly looks like. So
okay.
LisaRothstein.com, that's my URL, /masterclass.
Okay.
You'll be able to, I'm hoping that's correct. Let me just make sure. That you'll be able to sign up for her free Facebook Live. Let me see if I can make sure to type this, test this to make sure I gave you the right.
Okay. Molly Mahoney.
Yeah. Do you see that? Let's see if it's turning out to be, it's not the right one. Okay. Hang on a second. It's not the right one. It's not the right link, guys.
Okay.
Let's just see if it's.
I can put it in the notes later.
Yeah. Okay. Put it in the notes later.
And we have a question here from Cheryl. She's asking back to those polls that we were talking about with Facebook. So we've only got a couple of minutes, but could you give us a quick wrap up of whether you should do the poll from your page or whether you should do it from a targeted Facebook group where you might have higher engagement?
Oh, if you have a group, then absolutely. I mean, it's in fact, I'm going to invite people to. Okay, it's LisaRothstein.com /live masterclass.
Okay.
Live masterclass.
I'll fix that.
Yeah. So sorry about that. Yeah. No. If you have a group, that is an amazing resource. Definitely ask your group things. Of course, make it easy to answer. Don't make it 8 million questions long, or maybe one question at a time or something like that, because people will get fatigued. Even people who want to help you are going to get fatigued. I have a Facebook group of my own that if you want to join that, where we talk about things like this, it is, there's a little picture of me, join creativemoneymakers.com. And I know that one is right. because I just tested it. Join creativemoneymakers.com. And if you ask to join, there's no hoops to jump through. I'll just let you in. And it's a bunch of people who are mostly entrepreneurs doing stuff, talking about the same kinds of stuff that we're talking about here. And for Molly's masterclass, it is lisarothstein.com/live masterclass.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's really great. We're going to wrap up now. If there's something about where we can find you, Lisa, that'd be great. Besides what you've already told us, if you want to, I know you've got a website.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on lisarothstein.com. You can always find me there, but really it's best to look for me on social media. Come and join my group. And that's where you can have the most kind of conversations with me. You can find me on LinkedIn also, if that's your game. And so, Facebook is probably the best place to reach me because I'm on there all day long.
Okay.
So I hope, hopefully that will, if anybody wants to reach out to me as a PM or something like that, that would be great. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Delightful. Just wonderful, wonderful experience. Thanks again.
Thanks.
See you next time. Okay.
Bye.